Next up are two stars from the film Created Equal. Actor Aaron Tveit, who previously made a splash in director Tom Hooper's film adaptation of Les Miserables and the recent Grease Live television event, and actress Edy Ganem, who is perhaps best known for her recurring role on the hit TV series Devious Maids. Created Equal tells the story of a devout Catholic woman who yearns to enter the priesthood. Unsatisfied with what she views as the church's outdated and discriminatory doctrine, she hires a successful lawyer and files suit against the church. This terrific film was directed by acclaimed actor and director Bill Duke, and it co-stars Lou Diamond Phillips.
I saw the film earlier today, and I thought it was great.
Oh, good. I'm so glad.
Tell me what spoke to you about it, the project itself and your character in particular.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess starting with the project itself, I just, I was sent the script to read it, and it kept kind of, as I read the script, and I think the movie does this too. I was kind of constantly surprised by how not stereotypically the story unfolded. I read kind of the byline, and I thought it was maybe going to be a shot at the church or a shot at something, but it really, I think, depicted such a fair side of this argument that that was the thing that really was very, very intriguing to me. Not, of course, the fact of the time. It's a very timely script with kind of everyone's rights right now, which I think is a great story to be telling in this way. But I really didn't think that either side was ever villainized, and that was something that really spoke to me. I was raised Catholic, so I'm aware of the Catholic Church, and so that was another thing. I mean, I'm kind of I have my own beliefs with it now, but my family is still more. I'm kind of a couple year go to church Catholic, probably the ones that they talk to my character about in the show, but I still do very much believe in the institution of it, just because I see what it does for people. And so for me, it was a great thing to see that neither side was kind of depicted as right or wrong, and you kind of are. I think hopefully we allow the audience to see every side of it. And then as far as a character goes, I'm always interested in people that are complicated and that there's an ability for someone to change, and kind of where Tommy starts and kind of the questions that he has about his own faith and what faith means to him, I really related to. And then that he meets this girl that Eddie plays, and they're kind of an odd pair at the outset, but then they, I think, really learn a lot from each other and are changed by each other. And that's ultimately what I'm always looking for in parts, characters that can be affected by other people in positive ways. So it kind of spoke to all of that, to me.
Yeah, and even, I mean, let's stick with the Catholic Church for just a moment. I mean, in terms of it being, it speaks to the traditions of an institution. At what point does that institution lose its identity if it kind of relinquishes those traditions? So you're right. It isn't cut and dry. It isn't simple.
No, and it's a very fine line, because, like you said, like those institutions are what kind of holds up this thing. But at the same time, if it's not amiable, if it can't change with the times, it's obviously going to end. So I think that's the very fine line that these kind of old school things walk and have to kind of adapt as culture changes. And I think that we're, not that, I mean, it's cyclical, right? I mean, the human race is always changing, but it feels like we're at a time of the, the young generation now is definitely not going to, there's just so many new things and acceptance and tolerance that, I hope in my heart that 20, 30 years from now, a lot of the things that people are talking about, we aren't going to be talking about anymore. So, I think that things kind of have to bend a little bit to accommodate for that.
Well, it's evolution. I mean, some of these institutions have to catch up to natural evolution. I think Eddie's on the phone. Eddie, are you there?
Hello.
This is Jamie.
Hi. Sorry, I was so confused thinking that you guys were gonna call me, and then I'm like, why are they not calling me?
No, we were waiting for you.
I'm so sorry. let me ask you what I was talking to Aaron about a little bit ago. I saw the movie earlier today, and I loved it. I thought it was great and thought-provoking and very insightful about both its themes and its characters. And speaking of characters, what about your character spoke most to you when you read the script?
You know, it was actually one of the first characters that I didn't really necessarily right away feel like we had a lot in common per se, because she was so different, you know, from me and so inspiring. And for the first time, it was a character that I looked up to. So it was more of a, you know, more of a challenge to put myself in the shoes of someone that, you know, had like bigger shoes. And to actually step up to that, you know what I mean? Because her conviction and her values and just the way that she sticks to what she believes is true to her is so strong, and not everyone has the guts to do that, you know?
Did you speak to anyone in the church, that any kind of role models for that character, or anyone that helped you inform who that character was?
So I actually grew up Catholic. I grew up in Mexico, and all my schooling over there were Catholic schools. And so a lot of the teachers were sisters of the Catholic Church and nuns. And I feel like I had a lot of background from then. My mom, she's very religious. So I talked to her. And then I obviously had a very good in-depth conversation with Bill Duke, our wonderful director. But yeah, I mean, I grew up with the Catholic religion. I'm not necessarily anymore, you know, a religious person per se, but I kind of just grew up with that. And so I was just very kind of aware, but also so ashamed that I never really questioned it myself like my character does. You know what I mean? So it just brought up all these questions. Yeah, I was like, wow, I can believe that never even occurred to me. Like, I just feel so stupid, you know, like that I never even thought about how it was always males that were the priests, the women were the nuns, and yeah.
Well, it's one of those things, like, Eddie, I basically said the exact same thing about growing up Catholic 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And,
you have that too.
It's not something you question. You know, we were talking about these old institutions, and it's just the way of it, and you kind of fall in, and that's what you're taught, and it really takes someone very bold to question these things, and that's what I think your character really does in this, you know?
Yeah, and it's amazing how she inspires your character to change
Absolutely.
in such a way that, you know, you were like this player, and suddenly you're questioning things as well. But, you know, that's a very, very good point that you're mentioning. I think it's so true that we grow up and it's almost part of how things should be to not question things. Because if you do, it's, you know, like you're challenging. And actually we see that in the movie. My dad in the movie basically tells me that I shouldn't be going against, you know, the way things are, that, like, what are people going to think? What people are going to talk about him, and how he doesn't control his family or his daughter, and how, you know, the shame. So that is very true. It's the old school basically stuff that, you know, that hasn't changed, and it's just been what it is for years and years.
And also not in a way where, you know, it doesn't seem like your father doesn't love you. It doesn't mean that. It's just
not at all,
that's the only kind of tunnel vision that he has about it. It's very fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, a big reason why I love the movie as much as I do is because it's bigger than the Catholic Church, if that's possible. The Catholic Church is huge, but it's about gender roles in our society. And, you know, in terms of your character, Aaron, I mean, Eddie just mentioned it. In your character's own life, you have a way of kind of compartmentalizing women in your own life. Yeah. And I'm curious, why did your character decide to take on her case? Did he recognize something lacking within himself, and that made him follow this through?
Well, as a question that I have.
That's such a good question.
And
yeah.
I personalize a lot of things, like, as an actor, so I just, like, try to turn it over in my head, like, the way that I would think about it. And I think, honestly, at the beginning, he kind of takes it on as a challenge. And then there's a great moment in the scene where I first meet Eddie's character, when she basically says, why does not having a penis, is that the only prerequisite? And, I think Tommy's a really smart guy and knows he's smart and has all the answers. And she totally stumps him in that moment. So I think it kind of starts in a place that he's honestly just intrigued and it's a problem to solve. And then as it goes, I think he has all this underlying and questions about himself and his faith and his own family inside that kind of get brought to the surface without him even really planning that to happen.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way that I looked at it as I was looking at it. And I think that's kind of what happens. I think he kind of backed into it in a way that he takes it on as this challenge and what he's supposed to do, and then it just kind of takes a life of it, becomes its own thing, has a life of its own.
Yeah. And Eddie, this might sound like an odd question, but when I think of the portrayal of women, whether they be nuns or what have you, I mean, when you put on something like a habit, it almost acts like a cloak of virtuosity, of virtuousness. And I'm wondering, was it a challenge to play her as obviously a virtuous woman, but also understandably human, to let the humanity come through that?
Yeah, actually, that was one of the challenges as well, where I had to really just, you really kind of dig deep and to understand someone who would go in that direction in their life and choose, this path. And also at such a young age, because it's, from her history, it's that she always knew what she wanted to do and she always followed the religious path. And for me to think, because, I'm basically not that person. I've dated, I'm married. And so it's, you really think, right? Like, I remember actually having the discussion with Aaron, kind of like how does that really happen? How does someone commit themselves to basically a life of devoting themselves to God and never having a partner, and just, is there attraction when you see someone? And the way I thought that should be humanized, and I feel like we're all human at the end of the day, and I think that she follows her path, but everything else in her life is like any other woman would have it, any other person who works and is dedicated, and they work hard and they wake up every day, and she would see someone like Tommy and think, what a good-looking young man, what a handsome guy, and recognize qualities and all that stuff, but knowing that her calling is to have the life with God. I don't know if that really answers the question, but like I said, playing Allie was definitely the most challenging character I've ever played, and also the most rewarding, because she's such a unique person, loving so much what she does and basically being so selfless. As a human, and if I'm not like a monk or anything like that, I really kind of have to explore that.
Listening to you talk, I mean, maybe there isn't so much of a separation between you and your character, because I think you as a performer probably understand having a calling and wanting to put all of yourself and your passions into something. And for you, it's, I would imagine, is performing.
Right.
Yeah.
True. And when you sacrifice things and you prioritize kind of like your career over other things, like a lot of people that I know in the industry, maybe, put up having children and then they end up having children really late and they wish they would have done it earlier, or, just like the things that you sacrifice. So it's, in a way, that is a good point. It's a good symmetry with Allie because, she even has a moment of doubt herself where she's like, I don't know if what we're doing is right. And she tells Tommy, people are getting hurt. And so she questions if she's being selfish and if she should be doing this. But then, Tommy actually is the one that convinces her that this is a bigger thing than just about them anymore. It's one of those things where it's like, we have to keep doing this now. So yeah, it's true. I mean, we, as a performer, I definitely did a lot of things where I had to sacrifice things, but I just feel like it's in such a different way, right? Like Allie it's just so pure. Everything she's doing is just it's just good all around.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I mean, a calling is a calling, right? I mean, it's like,
it's true.
I mean, I don't think that there's, honestly, people ask me, what would you do if you weren't an actor? I honestly can't answer that question. I have no idea.
You would just think to yourself in the shower.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
I'm just kidding.
Well, it's almost like asking someone, who would you be if you weren't you? And you only know how to be you. And, it's in your blood.
Yeah.
It's
so,
true.
I want to ask, I'm supposed to chat with both Bill Duke and Lou Diamond Phillips on Saturday for this film. So I want to ask about your experiences working with both. I mean, Aaron, I really enjoyed the scenes where you go head-to-head with Lou Diamond Phillips in particular, because he's such an actor of such stature.
The first scene I shot in the movie actually was the scene with he and I in the Cardinals' house at the table. That was my first scene. So we were kind of thrown right into it. But no, Lou, I mean, I've been a big fan of his for a long time, and he was just like exactly what you would expect in the fact that like so completely professional and prepared and kind and right there, and you know what I mean. But that's what. It's always fascinating to me. People always ask, how is this person? How is this person? I truly find that kind of the higher up you go in this business, the nicer and better people are, because if you're, I mean, besides like, of course there are exceptions, but besides like a couple people, if you're kind of an asshole, nobody wants to work with you. So, Lou was such a case of that he was just like such a pro, and he was so committed to this project and believed in it like everyone else. And I just had a wonderful time kind of, hitting the tennis ball back and forth with him too, as like a bit of an adversary.
Yeah. And his part is so tricky too, because I think that would be one of the easiest parts of the movie to play as a stereotypical.
Well, I think both he and the Cardinal. I mean, right? It's it would be so easy to villainize those characters, and instead he, I think, really does a fantastic job presenting it. That listen, this isn't personal. I'm not upset with you or you guys, but this is just not the word of God. Like, this is not what we believe, and I think that it could very easily have suffered and gone a whole nother way.
Yeah, and we see at the end, just you realize that where his heart really is, and even in the scenes that we have in the courtroom, you even see that, if there's a good close-up of his face when he is questioning me, honestly, he was face-to-face with me, and he really almost had to hold back to not really have his emotions come out and like maybe even get to tears. So I just think that you can really tell that, he's just following his face, and the face has certain rules and he sticks to them, but it doesn't mean that he doesn't really realize or is aware or questions inside of him that maybe this is a little bit antiquated, that maybe the rules should change. But it's kind of like, where do we begin? Who is going to be the one to start this challenge? And you're going to not be accepted if you know what I mean? So you really do see that he's, a human being with a heart.
He's a man of equal convictions.
Yeah.
And Bill Duke, I mean, this is, again, another sensational actor who's become a great director. I mean, I remember, I think Rage in Harlem was his debut as director. That was an extraordinary film from the very beginning. So what's it like to be in his presence and directed by him? What's his style like, and what did you learn from him, Eddie?
He, I really feel like I I guess also the content and the writing and the character, but even his directing, he really changed me as an actress. I just really felt like I came out a better professional, a better actress. I was inspired by him. I just thought, he was really giving and really patient, and because there's a lot of emotional scenes, and he just really helped you get there and talk to you, and just so detail oriented. Like sometimes we would go back and talk about something, and he would really be like, remember this already happened, and so just so much detail about how someone would be feeling at this point, and it really impressed me. And it was just, working with Aaron, working with Bill, working with Lou and everyone. Like he said, I'm sure there are assholes out there, but luckily I've been lucky enough in this career of mine to work with mostly very nice people, and this film was no exception. And I just feel like I got to work with professionals that really were committed to doing this, to really bring out what they had to bring. And I feel like everyone really brought it. So it just really kind of made me feel like, I really need to up my game here. I'm working with these real professionals, and it was great. Aaron as a partner, it's just wonderful. And having the emotions of every sort of emotion was there every time. So.
Well, thank you, Eddie. I feel the same.
And Aaron,
Bill,
what did
what Eddie just mentioned about Bill? I mean, I agree with everything, and what she said specifically about kind of, saying, okay, this just happened. This is how you would feel here because this happened. Like being able to track that, you'd be surprised how many directors can't or don't do that. And so the fact, and it could be a subject that he started as an actor and just understands our process in a way that other directors don't. But he just, I think, had such a very clear vision of what he wanted this film to be, which, for better or worse, and I think better in our case, a director needs to do that, because if the director doesn't have an aim for what they want, the whole entire thing is going to be a mess. And so Bill, I think, just knew exactly what he wanted it to be, but in the same breath, he was very collaborative with our processes and how we needed to go about that. So he was just, I had a wonderful time working with him, and he's just kind of, he's a guy who's been in the business for a long time, and so just being around people like that and talking to them is also wonderful. But I just think he was a wonderful light for this story in this film.
And it's funny because if he's like quiet and not saying anything, he's just standing there, he looks so intimidating. Because he's so tall and so big, and I'm just like, but then he talks to you and he smiles and he's so nice. He puts his hand on your shoulder. He gives you a wink or like like fist bump or something, and you're like, he's cool.
So I just have two more quick questions for you guys, and then I'll let you off the hook. I appreciate you giving me your time. What do you hope? I mean, it premieres at the Sunscreen Film Festival later this month. What do you hope audiences at the festival and beyond take away from the film?
I think, like what we've been talking about, I think if it just makes people kind of take a look inside and think about people that are different from them, and think about, kind of where we are today and what really matters. And I hope that it's a thought-provoking film, not just, and that people don't think it's just a movie about religion or the Catholic Church, that it's about, that these kind of themes and overall ideas apply to many, many things in our lives today in 2017.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he said it. I literally I know I'm like really late to the game, but I just watched Moonlight, and sometimes like my husband's like, oh, I don't want to watch like depressing films, and why do we have to watch this, and whatever. And I'm like, I get it, but maybe because at your age you've already thought about this subject and whatnot, but you really have to think about the fact that sometimes people don't, like I even said it, I hadn't questioned a lot of things about my religion, and you go on with that your whole life. So I just wish the same thing that Aaron said, that, people will think and question and realize that this is just one thing, that it needs to be addressed, that needs to be thought about, needs to be talked about, and needs to eventually change. And hopefully we don't even have to talk about it in the future. And it's just like part of a big thing that a lot of things need to be looked at and thought about and questioned, and that way make our, whole existence and humanity better. And I can't even go about other things that are in our world happening right now that shouldn't even exist, And so all these things that need to be questioned and dealt with.
Yeah, and film has the power to inspire that dialogue.
Exactly.
It always has. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
people really like to sit there and watch movies, and this is the one way of really getting people to pay attention to things. It's sad because we shouldn't have to, do it only that way, but at least we have this medium.
Yeah, I mean, film has really defined my life, my love of film. So I'm grateful for films that grapple with these kinds of issues. And by the way, it's more than just. There's a thriller aspect to the film. It's a courtroom drama. Yeah. Which who doesn't love a courtroom drama? I mean, so it's got a lot going on. So I want to know from both of you guys what you're working on now and what's in the future.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Eddie. No, please.
I'm literally starting to just write stuff on my own, and so I kind of want to take a seat into the producing side and hopefully produce something. So, I've been working on that with a few friends. Now that I've been in the industry for a while, I've kind of developed the connections, but also, reading some scripts and just potential stuff that comes in my way, and see if there's something I now that I feel that I like to, I feel like now I can be a little bit pickier about the stuff that I do and really do projects that speak to me, that maybe inspire and challenge and just, that have a special meaning. So just really focus on and doing that and not just jumping for anything and everything that comes my way.
Yeah, actually, I'm kind of in the exact same boat. I mean, I think Eddie and I are both in a very a lucky position that you kind of work towards, that you get to a place where you kind of now you can just take stuff that you want to do and that speaks to you instead of just taking stuff to necessarily have to work. So I'm kind of doing the same thing. I'm reading stuff and looking for whatever's kind of the next thing, but at the same time, as we were talking about before, I'm doing some concerts, and so that's kind of keeping me singing and keeping me my musical inclinations up to par. So yes, I have a bunch of concerts, and two in Florida, actually the same weekend as the film festival.
Which I have to say was one of the funnest things about working with Aaron as well, because it was like a free concert every day. So I was like, yes, I should have recorded him. And
I'm glad that was the case and it didn't get annoying. Yeah.
Are you kidding me? I was like, keep going.